What do you want me? Maybe I can put the phone closer to her. Hey, and I'll get over here. Here we go. Hang
Closer
on.
to your
I'm a,
microphone on your
I'm a
computer.
genius. I'm a genius. Hold on. Okay, now Bob, can you still see me?
I still see you. You're a little lost sideways, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be a little bit.
Marilyn,
Okay, now
say something, Marilyn. Speak.
speak, Marilyn.
Okay.
Okay, I hear her good now. I hear her good.
You
Okay.
hear her good.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
and what I forgot was I forgot my notes upstairs, but
Oh,
that's okay. We'll start. Bob, when you're ready, Marilyn, we're gonna do it this way. You won't see your beautiful face, but they'll see my they'll see my double chin, so everything's fine. Okay, Bob, tell me when you're recording.
I'm recording now.
Okay, this is about Rheaume's restaurant. Okay, and I'm talking to Marilyn Pardo, and my name is Russ Rheaume, but I am a Rheaume. I'm still a Rheaume too, but I'm a Rheaume in
Who
real
was
life.
your who was your father?
My father is Lawrence Claire Rheaume, and my mother was Mary Priscilla Rheaume, and they were at a bank, and my mom was opening an account, and they asked for her middle name, and my dad yelled out, Mary C. Larry P. Because he was Lawrence. Wait,
Claire.
yeah, Larry C. Mary P. Anyways, Marilyn, that's a joke. Larry C. Mary P. Okay. Now let Bob. We're talking.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Thanks,
heard
Bob.
it
Laughing.
before.
Okay.
I've heard it before.
Okay. Now, Marilyn, who are you related to?
I'm related to Marilyn.
And your mom?
His wife was Patricia.
Yes. Okay. Patricia Scanlon, and but she's participant. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, and she made really good cake and brownies and because I went into your house at the farm there, and everywhere on the left as you walked in, you'd see something. Oh, I always like to go over there all the time. Anyways,
She was a good cook.
yes, she was.
Yeah.
As my Romanian grandfather said, she was a good cook. Okay, now let's
So,
talk about the
so
restaurant. That's what we're
you both
talking about.
worked at the restaurant. Tell me about that.
Marilyn, when did you work there?
I worked there in the summer of 1965.
Well, all during the summer. Did you work full time?
Pardon me?
Did you work full time?
Did I work what?
Full time.
Oh, full time. Yeah, I pretty much full time.
Okay.
Yeah, 30 to 40 hours a week. Yeah.
Yeah, that's full time. And your boss was your dad. The manager was your father.
I'm sorry. Say it again.
The manager was your father.
Yeah,
I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk more succinct right now, if I can. Oh, okay, let's start off. Let's start off with my favorite topic, me. No, no, no. Let's start off. First of all, when I was little, my dad used to take me on the rounds. Did you ever go on the rounds, Marilyn? Oh, good, good, good. Well, I remember since I'm a little older, I'm the cousin number 5, and you're the cousin number 7, I believe, right below Nancy. I'm pretty sure.
Ask Marilyn if she's using a speakerphone.
and remember what Doug?
No, before me was Billy's was Freddie first, then Billy, and then Mike, and then Doug, and then I, and then
Can I
Nancy, and I thought you were afterwards.
can
Right,
I ask a question?
Mr. Sally.
right.
Ask
Now
ask
Bob wants to ask a question.
Marilyn, are you on a speakerphone?
Yeah.
Could you get off the speakerphone and hold it to your ear? Think we'd hear
I
you
keep
better.
going. Hold on.
But how will I hear?
There, is that better?
Oh
That is
yeah.
better. Yes, much better. We hear you
See,
better.
oh,
Okay.
Bob,
Good.
Bob is real. Bob is real smart. We
Yes, he is.
we were doing speaker to speaker, and that wasn't working as good. Okay. Now, let me start off. I worked on my dad when I was little. I went on the rounds with him. I'd carry his briefcase. And I remember going to 4 restaurants. Well, actually 5 in a way. First of all, I went to West Jefferson. I forget the address. I went to that restaurant, and then we went to 9221 Grand River. Now, 9221 Grand River was directly across from the Riviera Theater.
Oh,
Because the Riviera's address was 9222. Okay. And I remember going in there. I also remember going to 6523 Woodward. That was the restaurant that had the wall that was all mirror. So the restaurant looked twice as big. Remember that? Yeah. And finally, I went to 1270 Griswold, where in the future, Marilyn and Russell both worked. Russell was a dishwasher and busboy, and Marilyn was a waitress. Okay. Um, so, anyways, I remember going with my dad, and he'd point to things, and he got me talking over and over again, repeating myself, because he'd say, "Good, high class, high class." We'd point around, "High class, Russell, high class," and I still talk like that. But, anyways, uh, I remember. Let's see. I remember going up. The fifth thing I remember is going up to. And I went up to the my dad, and I saw where Grandpa Rheaume had his office, and where Pete Rheaume, his brother, had his who died before me. He had an office there, and there was Jimmy. No, there was Schaefer. Louis Schaefer was the manager, and I remember going up there and looking out the window of Grandpa's office. I must have been real little, but they had the whole 12th floor of the Metropolitan Building. Downstairs in the basement was a restaurant. One of the restaurants. I didn't go down there, or if I did, don't remember. That's where my mom got a job. Her uncle, Romanian uncle, was the Iceman, and he saw a sign saying waitress wanted. And so my mom went there and did get the job. They told her to wear high heels so she looked taller. And she worked behind it was a buffet type restaurant. This is what I was told. And she started off in the front and gradually worked all the way across as she got more experience to the coffee. The coffee was the last spot, and she would all go around and fill people's coffee. She met Grandpa and Grandma. They came in, and Grandma was dressed up in a nice little fur coat and outfit, whatever. And Grandma was always laughing, always smiling, very nice. Grandpa was more reserved, But that's that story. Now, your mother, Marilyn, and Pat was the receptionist upstairs on the 12th floor. And I don't know if you can tell me or not, but didn't your father meet her on a bus in the east side of Detroit?
Well, I thought that they met at the restaurant. That's where they met. They met on the bus. I never heard that.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Let's go with the restaurant. Sounds better. I think your mom was hitchhiking. No, that's not right. Yeah, yeah. We'll explain that a little later to the folks down here. Okay. So, anyways, we both. I remember my cousin Mike, who was your brother, the older brother, who was passed away. He was a real cool guy. He worked at 1270 as a busboy, a dishwasher, whatever we did. And I took his place afterwards when he got a job promotion. My phone's ringing and it says spam. How do I hang up, Bob?
Just let it
Anyways,
finish and
we'll let it
don't
go.
answer it.
Where was I, Marilyn? I lost my track.
You were saying that you were working as a busboy.
Oh yeah, and Mike got a job parking cars at the Fisher Building, made more money. Okay. And so I got his job, which was kind of cool. Now, Doug worked at 6523 Woodward near the GM building. He worked there. And I'm too bad he passed away because he'd probably have a lot of nice, funny stories to tell too. But I'll start off with 1270 and
Bless
then
his
Maryland.
soul.
Yeah. Well, okay. At 1270, I got a job working there when I was 14 years old. Uh, we lived in Dearborn Heights. I had to hitchhike down Ford Road. Everybody back then hitchhiked. It wasn't a big deal. Now it is. But I hitchhiked down Ford Road to Michigan Avenue and took a bus into downtown Detroit and went to the restaurant. One time I went through the Sheraton Cadillac because it was a shortcut. And Uncle Elmer would always make sure that I was there. He got mad if I was late. So I ran through the Sheraton Cadillac and I busted into this man as I was opening the door and went through. And I stopped and looked back at him. He had white shoes on and he smiled at me. That was Pat Boone.
Okay.
So that's one of my claims to fame. I ran into Pat Boone. But I was late for work, and your dad, uh, he he made a comment I'll never forget. It was about 5 minutes after 8. I was supposed to be there at 8, and he said, "Good afternoon" to me. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I remember going up. No, the offices were in the Metropolitan Building, but then they lost that restaurant or whatever, and the offices were now above on at 1270 Griswold. And you had remember Maryland, you had to go way up that big long
Oh,
stairs.
yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Those stairs were long. It just seems like you were going forever. I'm in a mountain. But when I got up to the door, I'd opened the door, and in the right next to this, there was a desk, and the lady's name was Sophie. She was the secretary, Sophie. And I remember saying hi to her, hi to Sophie. And then I turned, as I went upstairs, I turned to the left and made a U-turn into the upstairs. And my dad, Lawrence, was the secretary treasurer. He had the office right against the wall as you're going backwards, on the U-turn. And it was a smaller office. And I remember going there and sitting down. And he had a hole for the mail to put through into the next office, which belonged to Uncle Earl and Uncle Elmer, your dad, Marilyn. And as I sat in the chair, I look out and I see the sign. And it was a neon sign, went Rheaume's, then it stopped, and then it goes restaurant. Rheaume's restaurant. So I am an expert on spelling the word restaurant. I've been there. Now, I remember once sitting in that office, and they were talking about having some kind of a hamburger that would entice the people to come in. And I don't know who was it, your dad or was it Uncle Earl? Doesn't matter. But it said, let's call it the Super Burger, one third pound of beef. Well, yeah, I think one third. And they named that. I remember I heard how the Super Burger. You remember the Super Burger, Marilyn?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, maybe they changed it afterwards and going down the line, but it was a Super Burger. Now, working as a dishwasher and busboy, I started there. I worked in the kitchen, and I also had to go down the basement. My job was to put potatoes in the potato peeler or whatever. It was a tumbler thing that would peel off the skin of the potato. Uh, I think they were Idaho. I'm not sure. Maybe they were Michigan. Who knows? Back then I didn't know. But then after the potatoes were peeled, then I put them in the French fry machine, and I pulled the latch down, and it would cut the French fries. And they were nice big French fries. Oh yeah. And then I bring them up, and they'd cook them and whatever. Some of the potatoes were mashed for the mashed potatoes. I won't spend a lot of time there. Another time I was getting ice cream. Remember, Maryland, where the ice cream was in the basement?
Oh, yeah.
In the very front. Well, I was in there and I had the door open, and this girl, Stephanie, a waitress, was walking up, and I was looking at her butt, because I was 13 or 14, 15. And then when I came up, she looked around and saw me, and I felt embarrassed. When I came up, Lena, the older lady, she told her to quit picking on him. Lady was saying, "Oh, look at my butt," you know. He says, "You leave him alone. He's a young kid," you know. So Lena was helpful there. They had a busboy named Wally. Now, was he there when you were there, Marilyn?
Yes, wasn't that one of the waitress, one of the
Busboys.
waitress's boyfriend or something?
No, Wally was an old man.
No, no, that's not who I'm thinking.
Okay, he was old and he used to have fits once in a while. He was epileptic. And once in a while, he'd have a fit, you know, and he'd have to, I forget what happened. But, anyways, one time I asked him to get me something. I was washing dishes and he looked at me and he went, 2 hands, 2 feet, 2 hands, 2 feet. And he threw a knife at me, a little one, you know. I ducked. Yeah, I remember that. Another time working there, I told Marilyn this recently, but a customer came in and wanted pumpkin pie. We had just made fresh pies. The cook had made them, and you guys put them out there in the refrigerator there. And your dad goes and looks. Oh, sure, I'll get you pumpkin pie. And he looks in there, and there's no pumpkin pie. The guy gets up and he storms out and leaves. And Uncle Elmer looks through the hole in the kitchen, and there I am with a half of a pie in my hand, eating it. And I noticed his ears. He got mad, and his ears were turning red. But we always got along afterwards, you know. Uh, but that was another time. Let's see what else. I'm trying to think. Oh, one time there was a guy that was a busboy, and he was uh, a woman impersonator. Okay? And yeah, he was working there. We had some different people working there. I'm sure every restaurant down there had all these people. But anyways, we had him, and he was always talking, like, kind of, like, you know. And anyways, uh, one time I said, John, why do you want to be a woman? I mean, I like being a man. And he says, oh, I like you as a man. And Lenny, the cook, Cuban cook, got mad. He said, get out of here. He goes in the walk-in cooler, grabs the biggest carrot he could find. He says, come on, John. And John ran out the door, scared him. These are just stories. Uh,
Jeez.
Another time,
I heard
there was
that
a
one.
big guy named Bruno. You remember Bruno, Pat? He was a big, giant German. I'm calling you Pat. Oh my God, Maryland. He was a big, giant German guy, kind of a bum. Okay. Well, Bruno was a big guy. Bruno was a character. He'd go downstairs and put something in the women's toilet, like nails or whatever, and then he'd come up and sit there, and then somebody would come up. Oh, the bathroom doesn't work down there. And your dad would say, oh, Bruno, can you go down and fix that? And Bruno would go down and fix it, but he caused it. He was, that was the kind of guy he was. It was Thanksgiving. I was working, and we ran out of turkey. Your dad or somebody gave Bruno, $10 for the turkey back then. And he was supposed to go to the Broadway market. Well, Bruno never showed up for about 10 days, took the money and ran, but he can't come back looking for work 10 days later. Okay. Now, I'm telling you, the restaurant, by the way, the food was excellent. I have to tell you that. I used to love the roast turkey. Their dressing was to kill for. It's just as
Russ,
good as Frank Frankenmuth. What?
could you let Marilyn talk for a little bit?
Well, I know I'm going to. I'm going to shut up right now. But let me finish. Yeah, Bob. Can I say one thing to you, Bob?
Sure. Okay.
Okay. No, wait a minute. Let me finish. Where was I now, Bruno? Oh, I met Bruno about 10 years later downtown in an alley. I don't know why I was down there doing something, investigating or something. And I was an investigator for an insurance company. Anyways, I said, "Hi, Bruno. How you doing?" He said, "Oh, can you lend me $5?" You know, that's all. That was Bruno. Okay. Now, Marilyn, let's let Marilyn talk. I have lots more stories, but we'll let Marilyn. Okay, Marilyn.
Okay, well, I remember this one particular time. It was people and it was during the rush hour breakfast. And I remember that each one of them left me a 25-cent tip, and that was the most I ever received. Because the prices of the food were so cheap.
Mhm.
So I was real impressed with them, and I still remember.
Yeah, the prices
And
were.
another time I remember when I went on the rounds with my dad. My sister Carol was there too, and we put us upstairs in the office, and we were pounding on the typewriters. We did that for hours, while my dad was, or however long he was down there. Well, we were pounding on it so much that the typewriter started smoking. So I had to run down the long stairs from the second floor, and I ran into the restaurant and said, "The typewriter's on fire." Of course, my dad ran through the restaurant, ran up the stairs, and just unplugged it. It was an electric typewriter, apparently. Apparently, we just overworked it. But that was just a funny story that I remember making the rounds with my dad. And I think there were 3 restaurants at the time when we made the rounds.
Yeah, that's cool.
Good
That's
one.
cool.
Yeah, good. Good to hear.
Do you remember? I know my dad had an adding machine, which I still have. I'll go get it one. And I used it was buttons, a whole bunch of buttons, and you put 999 all the way across, and then you'd put one, and it go all the way across to all the nines would be defeated. Marilyn, you talk a little more. I'm going to get the adding machine and show it.
Well, let's see, another time, we took orders at a counter for a garden. And when we took orders, we would go to the push the button down and order the customers ordered. Well, the cook in the kitchen, and I can't remember who he was, what his name was, but he could never understand me because he was getting so upset
Huh.
fast, and I thought, oh, he's going to get angry with me. But he came out and very patiently, he said, "Show me how you're ordering." He got to push the button down, and I set an order, and he said, "Oh, you're just too close to the intercom. Just step back." That was very nice of him. I didn't know anything. I was and that was very nice of him to do that for me. You know.
Yeah.
Okay, and I remember another time. It was during the breakfast time, and this man would come in every morning, and he would order a cup of coffee. That's all he would order. And when he left, here next to the coffee cup was 1 penny. Well, the coffee only cost 10 cents, so he was giving me a 10% tip.
Wow.
And a penny wasn't very much. That's how we ordered, was 1 cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Like that.
Interesting.
That's what I remember. Yeah, it was a nice place to work. I know the waitresses were always nice to me and helped me, and that was it.
Right now in my hand, I have the Burroughs adding machine, which is broken, unfortunately. I was going to put all the nines in and press one. I'm going to hold it the way it's supposed to be. Oh no, that is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Very nice.
No, there is no electricity involved. It's
Yeah, it's
all
all
just
mechanical.
manual.
Yeah,
Yeah, and this
amazing.
is probably we word something. It's broken now, but I just thought I'd do it in. Yeah. Now let me tell you another story. I'm walking away, so hold on. A couple times, Dick the Bruiser. Remember,
Oh,
people.
yeah,
He was a wrestler, and he came in. Sometimes he'd bring Crusher Cortez with him, Ricky Cortez, who came from Garden City, by the way. Anyways, Brick the Bruiser would come in and order a meal, and when he was on TV, he'd always go. But when he came in there, he talked normal. All of a piece of pie. What he did was he ran around Belle Isle. It's about seven, almost 8 miles. And then he'd go to his shower, take a shower. Then he'd come into the restaurant and eat. And he did that a couple times only. I can remember that. Isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else is going on. Oh, now Marilyn, tell us about some of the waitresses.
Well, I remember seeing that, and I really thought she was younger, and she had red hair. She was very nice. I can't remember her name.
Well, that's the one I was looking at her butt, probably. What was her name? Stephanie or something like that.
I remember reading it.
Years and years. And Marilyn, you also remember Julie. No, Julie had the dark hair. She was like Lebanese.
Russell,
and she was older.
Are you able to turn her volume up at all?
Turn who? Marilyn up again?
Yeah. Are you able to turn her up? That's as loud as she gets.
That's as loud as she gets. And
okay.
Wait a minute. Let me see if it's on speaker again.
Can you make it close to your microphone on your?
Okay.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Hold on, Bob. She did something. She's doing something, Bob. Rheaume's red. This is. Oh, now you sound louder. You sound louder, Marilyn. Yeah. No. Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Speak, Bob. Speak.
I am here, listening.
Okay.
Glued.
Bob, okay. Now, Bob doesn't remember the restaurant because it was gone. He was too little.
Yeah,
now, Greg corrected me. I thought the restaurant's closed in about 67, 68. But he claims that he has, I believe him, but he has a letter from a newspaper article that with your dad and Uncle Earl stating that it was 1969, which 69.
Well, I bet it was.
And then Greg says it was the same year that the men landed on the moon. Yeah. Now, my. Let me show you a little history. The restaurant started in 1910. The original restaurant was called You Eat a Lunch, and it was on Washington Boulevard, and it was like in a basement that was half sticking out of you could still see it from the sidewalk, but the basement was lowered. And it was Grandpa Rheaume, Henry Rheaume, the first, and his wife Olive, Grandma. And it was his brother Pete and his wife Shirley, and they were running the restaurant. That was just them. That was them, and they worked there for a while, and the restaurant did good. So this Uncle Earl was telling me this story now. They went around the block on Grand River and opened up a bigger restaurant. So they had two restaurants, but the second one didn't work real good. And they finally decided they were just going to have a cafeteria style rather than a big fancy restaurant. That the cafeteria style worked better, and good, and sure enough, it did. They started having more and more restaurants, and they changed it to it was called Rheaume's restaurant, but nobody in Detroit could say Rheaume, so they said Rheaume's, and that's where the Rheaume came in. That's where the different pronunciation of the last name, because Grandpa was a Rheaume up in Bad Axe. They were all Rheaumes. So okay, so then years later, this Marilyn, you're going to see this is very interesting. Years later, Grandpa was older. He he passed away when he was about 68, 69. But he was older, maybe 65, and he wanted a loan. What he wanted to do, he wanted to have a restaurant where you could have a window on the side and drive through. He wanted he wanted a fast food restaurant because he thought that was going to be the newest thing. So he was ahead of his time, ahead of McDonald's. But they wouldn't give him the loan for some reason. And he was very hurt about it because he had done real well all his life. And everybody, gave him things. But he didn't get that loan. And that was one of the bad things that happened towards the end. When he finally retired, he was kind of depressed about that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What else can we think about at the restaurant? So many things. After work, sometimes I went home with Uncle Earl instead of taking the bus by myself and hitchhiking. I went with Uncle Earl. We'd get on the Michigan bus and we'd drive all the way up to a street called Lanyo, and he parked out there. And I remember Uncle Earl had a 52 Cadillac, just like Grandpa had. Grandpa had a 52 Cadillac before that, but Uncle Earl had a used one, I probably think. And I was so amazed. I got in his Cadillac and I pressed the radio, I pressed the button, and would go to the next station. That was something brand new. In the olden days, you had to turn the switch and tune in, blah, 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 that.
Yeah.
And, they didn't have all these automatically things. So the Cadillac was the first one to have that. But also, Uncle Earl carried a gun. He had a concealed weapons permit, I guess. And he told me that because he'd take money to the bank.
Oh, yeah.
To take money to the bank. That's another thing I remember. Also, I remember back then there was a solar eclipse. And everybody went out and we're looking at they told us how to make a little pinhole thing in a box or whatever. And we all went out there. A lot of us went out there and looking at the solar eclipse. Another thing I remember was in Detroit there were a lot of homeless people, and they would go around looking for food, and we'd go in the back and look out, and they'd be in our garbage cans looking for things that we threw out. Well, once in a while, Lenny the cook and they would give them a sandwich or something, just to, charity wise. I think your dad knew about it. I don't know, but that was another thing I remember. The women's locker room. Remember that, Marilyn?
Very vaguely. Yeah.
Yeah, they put their uniforms in there and all that. And the men's locker room was next to it. And if you go down in the basement, go down it was like a long hall with the women's locker room at the first, and behind it was the men's locker room. Uncle Elmer had lathes, Laths, lathes. A lot of people don't know what they are, but they're made for making steel and not steel, but making things out of. What's a lathe used for, Bob?
Shaping wood usually or something.
Oh, okay. And Uncle Elmer had a lot of those big tools down there, and I remember one time. Well, this had nothing to do with the tools, but one time I looked up and there was a rat going across the pipes up above. And, it really wasn't the restaurant's fault. All those buildings were attached. and the rats were free to go from all one building to the next, and so they had trouble with keeping them, keeping them down. They used to have rat traps and stuff like that. I mean, this is going back in the olden days almost. Marilyn and I, we know a little bit about the olden days,
Yes, you do.
don't we? Um, uh, what else can I? Marilyn, you have anything else to share?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, you keep thinking while I like to talk. I, I, I have a disease I suffer from. It's called foot and mouth disease. But anyways, um, let's see. Another time. Let me think now. Uh, oh boy.
We're
They had
probably
they had good they had good pies. They had a walk-in cooler. Did you ever go in that walk-in cooler, Marilyn? It was big. It was big. You walk in there, it was real cold. It had like almost like a safe type door would slam shut. And they had all the meats in there, all the different things and carrots and they had lots of different things in there. And the chef, I remember this is 1270 now. They had a stove, a grill, lots of grills. They had grills there, and they were working like crazy. They usually had two chefs at one time, usually two chefs. And I remember one was Lenny. He was a Cuban. He was fun. I got along real good with Lenny, and I like Lenny because when I ordered, oh, by the way, Marilyn, you know this. That part of our pay was the eating there.
Oh, yeah. Free food.
Free. What did you like?
Oh, geez. I don't know.
Well, I know.
Sometimes it was cooking with bread pudding. And at that point, they charge for a full dinner $1.25. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
originally, I made 75 cents an hour, and then I got a raise after a couple years to 90 cents. How about you? Do you remember?
Well, I thought I started with that 35 cents an hour, but the waitress said that.
Oh,
It was
and here I felt I was so bad for making 75. Wow. But, but no tips for me. I didn't get a single tip. Yeah, well, that was part of your pay. That's what the waitresses they're hustling. Oh, at night there was Kitty. Kitty was an older lady. You do? Yeah. I like Kitty. She was kind of nice. And then they had an older guy named Charlie. He worked the midnight shift or whatever the afternoon. And Charlie was so old that when he poured a cup of coffee, he came to you, his hand was shaking. Most of the coffee wound up in the saucer.
Oh, jeez.
But they didn't want to fire people. I noticed that. They wanted to keep them. They were very, very, was it conscientious, gentle, or whatever. Uncle Elmer and Uncle Earl and used to
Forgiving.
be like that, forgiving or whatever, or patient or whatever the word is. There's a bunch of words. I
Good.
noticed your dad probably never did. My dad never swore. I never heard him swearing. Even when Grandpa died, he was on the phone and he mentioned a couple words. I'll let you, whatever. But anyways, um, he never swore. Now I cannot say that. And I don't, Marilyn, I don't know if you can say that or not either. Okay, good, good.
I can't
Now
say it
remember,
either.
you can't say it either, Bob.
No, no.
Now,
We're going on probably over half an hour now. Do you
well, let
think we
me
should?
end with a couple of things.
Okay.
We lived on Hazelwood, and Uncle Elmer and your family, Marilyn, lived on Gladstone. We used to go there every Friday night for popcorn. Uncle Elmer would make the popcorn in the big popcorn roaster pan, whatever they call it, big high roaster pan. And he would flip it up in the air and he wouldn't lose a kernel. I couldn't believe it. I do that. And Marilyn taught me how to bonk. She, She taught me how to bunk. What you do is you get on the
chair.
on the couch and you just bump your head back and forth, back and forth. And we used to watch um, Dick Clark, American Bandstand. We'd be bonking away, you know.
Really?
Uh, and Nancy was there, and she knew all the characters on it. I didn't really care about them, but she knew all about who was going with who on the American Bandstand. It was kind of neat.
I
And
was a
I
bonker
mean,
too.
okay, we'll stop right now.
All right. Well, Marilyn, it's been a pleasure hearing your stories.
So thanks, Bob, for having me. Yeah,
What,
that's really nice.
what about me, Bob?
Oh, and you too, Russell, as well. Sure.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And well, listen, I miss Uncle Elmer. I miss Uncle Earl, and I
Oh,
miss my
yeah. I
dad.
miss them all too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They were all characters, but it was interesting, very interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very.
We'll have more to talk to in the future, okay?
Yeah. All right. Sounds
Okay,
good.
nice talking to you.
Okay, bye
Yeah,
bye,
you
Marilyn.
too.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. I'm going to shut it
Okay,
down,
Bob.
Russ. This
Okay,
concludes our reminiscing session.
okay, Bob.
All right. Oh, jeez.